I was denied my meal in first class. After landing, everyone was shocked. The scent of warm bread reached me before the cart did. Buttered rolls, roasted chicken, something with rosemary. I closed my eyes and let the smell settle in my chest like a memory from another life. A kitchen in 1968, flour on my hands, my husband humming off-key behind me. Ma'am. I opened my eyes. The flight attendant's smile didn't reach hers. Yes. My voice came out soft, steady. 8 decades have taught me that softness is not weakness. It is control. I'm afraid we've run out of your selected meal. I blinked once. I had selected my meal 3 weeks ago. I remember because my granddaughter Jasmine had helped me on her laptop. Grandma, you deserve first class. You've never flown first class before. I had laughed. Baby, I grew up riding buses where the back wasn't a suggestion. She didn't laugh. Now here I was. Seat 2A. Window. First class. At 80 years old. And no meal. I understand, I said gently. What are my options? She shifted. A flicker in her eyes. Irritation? Discomfort? Well, we do have a vegetarian pasta left. I nodded. That's fine. She didn't move. But that is not what you ordered. The sentence hung in the air like turbulence. Behind me, I heard cutlery clink. Soft laughter. The man across the aisle, gray suit, gold watch, was already being served the rosemary chicken. I don't mind, I said. Truly. Her jaw tightened. The pasta is usually for economy overflow. I looked at her then. Really looked at her. Perfect makeup. Crisp uniform. Young enough to be my granddaughter. And something else. Hesitation. Like she was waiting for me to argue. I've eaten worse, I said calmly. A few passengers glanced up. The woman beside me, platinum blonde, heavy perfume, leaned closer to the aisle. Honestly, this is why they shouldn't oversell upgrades. I turned slowly toward her. I paid for my seat, I said. Silence. Her lips pressed into a thin line. The flight attendant cleared her throat. I'll see what I can do. She moved on, but she did not come back. By the time trays were collected, my table remained empty. No pasta, no bread, no apology, just a small plastic cup of water. My stomach growled, not loudly, but enough for me to feel it. 80 years old, and my body still reminded me when it needed something. I pressed the call button. The same attendant approached, slower this time. Yes. I believe my meal was forgotten. Her smile returned. Tighter now. Oh, I assumed you declined. I did not. She hesitated again. Then she said it. Well, there was some confusion about seating assignments. My fingers tightened slightly on the armrest. Confusion. Seat 2A. Boarding pass scanned twice. Flight manifest checked. What kind of confusion? I asked. She lowered her voice. Some passengers were concerned. Concerned. The word felt familiar. Old. Worn down by decades. Concerned when I enrolled in university in 1964. Concerned when I bought my first home in a white neighborhood. Concerned when I became head nurse at St. Mark's Hospital. Concerned when my husband and I celebrated our 50th anniversary at a restaurant that once refused to seat us. Concern. I folded my napkin carefully. I see, I said. Her shoulders relaxed, as if my compliance confirmed something for her. Well, we're landing shortly anyway. And she walked away. The plane began its descent. Clouds parted beneath us like curtains revealing a stage. I rested my hand against the window. The glass was cool. I have lived long enough to recognize patterns. This wasn't about chicken. This wasn't about pasta. This was about presence. An 80-year-old black woman sitting in first class. Alone. No flashy jewelry. No designer handbag screaming wealth. Just a navy suit, low heels, and a pearl necklace my husband gave me in 1972. To some people, I suppose, I looked misplaced. The man across the aisle avoided eye contact. The blonde woman typed furiously into her phone. The flight attendant laughed near the galley. I felt something stir inside me. Not anger. Not yet. Memory. I remembered standing in line at age 12, watching my mother step aside to let others go first. I remembered promising myself I would never shrink. And yet, here I was. Hungry. Dismissed. 80 years old and still being confused. The wheels hit the runway with a jolt. Applause broke out in economy. In first class, only silence. We taxied. Seatbelt signs remained on. I noticed something then. The captain's voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We have a special request before deplaning. A murmur rippled through the cabin. The blonde woman sighed loudly. I have a connection. The flight attendant stiffened. The same one who denied me my meal stood straighter. Seated in 2A, would you kindly remain where you are after landing? Every head turned. Heat rose slowly into my face. I had not told anyone my full name on this flight. Not the attendant. Not the passengers. The blonde woman blinked at me. The man across the aisle suddenly looked very interested. The attendant's color drained. I felt my heartbeat steady, not race. Because I knew that tone. Formal. Respectful. Intentional. The plane stopped at the gate. The seatbelt sign switched off. But no one stood. The flight attendants exchanged glances. The captain himself stepped out of the cockpit. He was tall, mid-50s, silver hair, and when his eyes landed on me, they softened. He walked down the aisle. The crew parted, completely silent now. He stopped beside my seat. Then he did something no one expected. He removed his cap and nodded. "Mrs. Carter," he said quietly, "on behalf of the airline and on behalf of my family, I owe you an apology." The air in the cabin shifted. Thick. Electric. I looked at him calmly. "Do you?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "Yes, ma'am." Behind him, the flight attendant who denied me my meal stood frozen. The blonde woman's mouth hung open. The captain continued. "My mother was a nurse at St. Mark's Hospital in 1978. She worked under a head nurse who fought the board to allow minority trainees into the program." A tremor passed through me. St. Mark's. 1978. He swallowed. "She told me that woman saved her career. Saved our family. That woman was you." A pin could have dropped. No one moved. No one breathed. I felt 80 years collapse into a single heartbeat. He went on. "I recognized your name when I saw the passenger manifest. I wasn't certain at first, but when I saw you board." His voice broke slightly. I knew. The silence in first class was no longer casual. It was heavy, the kind that forces reflection. The captain straightened. "And I am deeply ashamed that on a flight under my command, you were not treated with the dignity you have spent your life giving others." I did not look at the attendant. I did not look at the blonde woman. I looked only at him. "Stand up," I said gently. He blinked. "Ma'am, stand up straight." He did. "You owe me nothing," I said. "But your crew owes themselves integrity." The words landed differently than anger would have. Because anger is loud. But dignity is devastating. Behind him, the flight attendant's eyes filled. I could hear her breathing now. Shallow. Uneven. The captain nodded once. "Yes, ma'am." He stepped aside. And then something happened that none of them anticipated. I stood. Slowly. 80 years in my spine, but not bent. I turned toward the flight attendant. She couldn't meet my eyes. "I was hungry," I said quietly. Her lip trembled. I'm so sorry." "For the meal?" I asked. She shook her head. "No." There it was. Recognition. Not of me, but of herself. The kind of moment that divides a life into before and after. I picked up my purse, smoothed my jacket, and as I stepped into the aisle, every passenger in first class moved aside. Not out of obligation, out of understanding. But this story wasn't finished. Because what waited at the gate would silence the entire airport and change that airline forever. The cabin door opened with a hollow metallic sigh. Cool air from the jet bridge spilled inside. Recycled, faintly chemical, tinged with airport coffee and impatience. No one moved. Even the passengers behind the curtain in business class had stopped rustling their bags. The captain stepped aside for me. I could feel their eyes, not burning, not accusing. Watching, trying to reconcile the version of me they had assumed with the one now unfolding. I walked forward. Slow steps. Measured. The jet bridge felt longer than usual. My heels tapped softly against the ribbed flooring, echoing in the narrow tunnel. And then I saw them. At the gate. Waiting. 3 airport executives in navy suits. A woman holding a bouquet of white lilies. A young man with a camera. And behind them, 2 uniformed staff members standing unusually straight. The airport buzzed beyond them. Rolling suitcases. Boarding announcements. Children whining. Phones ringing. But around the gate, a pocket of stillness. The lead executive, a woman in her early 40s, stepped forward the moment I crossed the threshold. "Mrs. Carter," she said gently, her voice carrying both reverence and regret. I paused. "Yes." She extended the lilies toward me. "On behalf of Atlantic Crest Airways, we want to formally apologize for your experience today." A few travelers nearby slowed down. Someone whispered, A phone lifted discreetly. I took the flowers. They're beautiful, I said. The captain had followed a few steps behind. So had the flight attendant. Her face was pale now, eyes red-rimmed. Mid-flight the about an issue involving seating and meal service. After reviewing the initial details, she hesitated. We realized this was not simply a service oversight. No, it wasn't. The woman took a breath. You are listed in our company archives. That surprised me. In 1983, she continued, when our airline faced a federal discrimination investigation regarding minority hiring practices, you testified voluntarily before the advisory board. Memory moved through me like a slow tide. A small conference room. Fluorescent lights. Men in dark suits asking whether I truly believed aviation leadership should reflect the communities it served. I had told them yes. Without shaking. I remember, I said quietly. You didn't have to, she replied. No, I agreed. I didn't. The young man with the camera lowered it slightly, unsure whether to keep recording. The executive's voice softened further. That testimony led to the creation of our diversity training program, the very program our crew completes before flying. The irony hung heavy. Behind me, I heard the faintest sound, a stifled breath from the flight attendant. I did not turn. The executive straightened. We failed you today. There it was again. Not defensiveness. Not corporate language. Failure. Around us, the airport noise seemed distant now, like we were inside glass. I studied her face. You're not the first company to fail, I said. And you won't be the last. She nodded once, accepting it. But we intend to be the company that learns. A long pause followed. Then she gestured gently toward the seating area near the gate. If you would allow us 5 minutes privately. I considered. 80 years teaches you something about timing. Yes, I said. They guided me to a quiet corner of the terminal, cordoned subtly by retractable barriers. Not dramatic, just intentional. The captain stood to my right. The flight attendant remained a few steps back, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. The executive sat across from me. Mrs. Carter, she began carefully. The meal denial was not a catering shortage. It was a manual override. The words were precise. Intentional. A passenger in 2C expressed discomfort with your seating assignment. I waited. He implied there had been an error. Of course he did. He requested confirmation that you were ticketed first class. I felt no surge of shock, only recognition. And instead of addressing his behavior directly, she continued, our crew chose to de-escalate by minimizing interaction with you. Minimizing. What a polite word for erasing. The captain's jaw tightened. That decision violates policy, he said firmly. And ethics. The executive nodded. It also triggered an automated internal review when the meal service discrepancy was logged. Technology sometimes does what people won't. The executive leaned forward slightly. The passenger who complained has been flagged. His loyalty status is under review. That earned a faint raise of my eyebrow. And the crew? I asked calmly. The captain answered this time. The crew will undergo immediate retraining. A formal incident report is being filed. But more importantly, he paused. They will sit with this. Silence settled. I looked at the flight attendant then. She finally met my gaze. And what I saw wasn't fear of losing her job. It was the fracture of self-image. I thought I was avoiding conflict, she whispered suddenly. Her voice shook. I thought I was keeping things calm. At my expense, I said gently. Her eyes filled. Yes. The airport announcement system crackled overhead, calling boarding for another flight. Life moving forward. As it always does. The executive reached into a folder and slid a document toward me. We would like to offer you a lifetime platinum status with full privileges. Complimentary travel for you and a guest annually. And a formal invitation to speak at our leadership summit next quarter. I stared at the paper. Not tempted. Not flattered. Just thoughtful. For what purpose? I asked. To share your story, she replied. My story, I said softly, is not entertainment. No, she said. It's instruction. That made me pause. I looked at the lilies resting in my lap. White. Clean. Fragrant. I will consider speaking, I said slowly. But not as a symbol. The executive nodded immediately. As a consultant, I finished. The captain blinked. I want access to your training materials. Your policy drafts. Your hiring pipeline data. The executive's surprise turned into something else. Respect. You would help us redesign it? She asked. I would ensure no other 80-year-old woman sits hungry to preserve someone else's comfort. The flight attendant inhaled sharply, because now she understood. This was never about chicken, or pasta, or pride. The folder carefully. Systems. Then we would be honored. As we stood to leave, a small voice spoke up from nearby. "Excuse me, ma'am?" We turned. A young black girl, maybe 10 years old, stood beside her mother. Braids tied with blue ribbons. Backpack too large for her shoulders. She stepped forward shyly. "I heard what they said about you," she whispered. Her mother looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she just. "It's all right," I said warmly. The girl looked up at me with wide eyes. "Were you really a head nurse?" "Yes," I said. "For a long time. Long enough to make trouble." She grinned. And then she asked the question that pierced straight through decades. "Did they ever try to make you feel like you didn't belong?" The airport around us faded. I knelt slightly, slow but steady, until we were eye level. "Yes," I said honestly. "What did you do?" I held her gaze. I stayed. Her small fingers tightened around her backpack strap, the kind of understanding that plants seeds. Her mother mouthed, "Thank you." I stood again, and as I walked away from that gate, lilies in hand, I realized something. I had boarded that plane thinking this trip was about visiting my granddaughter for her college graduation. But maybe it was something else. Maybe at 80 years old, purpose doesn't retire. Maybe it evolves. Behind me, I heard the captain speaking quietly to his crew. Not angry, firm, accountable. The kind of leadership that only appears when confronted with truth. And the flight attendant? She stood still for a long moment after I left. Not because she was dismissed, but because she had just been educated in a way no manual could accomplish. Outside the terminal, the late afternoon sun warmed my face. Jasmine was waiting by the curb, waving wildly. "Grandma." Her hug was fierce. "You look tired," she said, studying me. "I'm hungry," I replied with a soft smile. She gasped. "They didn't feed you in first class?" I laughed then. Really laughed. "Oh, baby," I said, sliding into the car. "They're going to feed a lot more than me after today." As we pulled away from the curb, I looked back once at the terminal glass reflecting the sky. 80 years old. Still here. Still standing. Still teaching. And somewhere inside that airport, a conversation had begun that would ripple far beyond a single flight. The Leadership Summit Hall was vast. Bright lights glinted off chrome and glass. Executives in tailored suits murmured over laptops and coffee. The air smelled of polished floors, strong espresso, and ambition. I stepped up to the stage. 80 years in my spine, 80 years in my mind, yet I felt younger than I had in decades. The microphone trembled slightly in my hand. I didn't need notes. My life was enough. I have flown many flights in my life. I began, voice steady. Some smooth, some turbulent, some uncomfortable. But today, I want to talk about what it means to be seen. Not just noticed. Truly seen. The room was silent. Even the staff I had met on that flight sat in the front row, attentive. "I was denied a meal once," I said. A few eyebrows raised, smiles flickered. I let them. But that meal wasn't the point. It was about presence, respect, integrity, systems that fail when humans choose comfort over courage. I paused, letting it settle. The young flight attendant from that day was in the audience. Her eyes glistened. I did not point her out. She already knew. "And I stand here not to be honored," I continued, "but to honor what we owe each other. To teach that dignity is not optional, that our elders, our communities, and even strangers deserve to be treated with care, always." A hush fell. Then applause. Not polite, not fleeting, genuine, slow, rolling, heartfelt. Later, back in my hotel room, I called Jasmine. "You did it, Grandma," she said, voice cracking. "You changed things." "I hope so, baby," I said softly. "I hope someone remembers that the next 80-year-old woman or girl boarding a plane doesn't have to fight just to exist in the seat she paid for." I looked out the window at the city lights. Life had brought me here, not for recognition, not for reward, but for a simple truth: presence matters. Courage matters. Even at 80. Especially at 80. The lilies sat on the table. White, clean, fragrant. A reminder that dignity, once upheld, blossoms. And as I closed my eyes, I realized some journeys are not measured in miles or meals, but in the quiet impact we leave on those who follow. I had flown high, not because of first class, but because I refused to remain invisible. And that was worth every mile. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button and share this video to someone that needs to see this.